Hello fellow scrubs, welcome back to another episode of Joe's Corner. I'm Joe, and this is my corner. So today I'm going to be talking about the recent Austin ARG that I attended. I got first place, so I got really cool bag, super awesome playmat for says champion, that's pretty nice, a booster box, and this was a deck that I took to the ARG and won. So on the previous episode, I showcased this deck. It's a Zero Bomb. I made a couple of little tweaks and changes to it, and I really liked how it performed at the ARG, and I wanted to talk to you guys about it. So the basic idea of the deck was to do a very fast J Ruler Rush with zero, give her flying, and hit for a lot of damage. It usually turns into a 2-turn clock, and you do around 2,000 damage the first turn and around 2,000 damage the next turn. The deck ended up doing fairly well. I was very happy with how it turned out, how it played. I'm going to go over some of the matches that I played and kind of the decks that I faced in the ARG. So my main score was 3-2 before we hit top 8. The first deck I faced was a Zero Mirror, which I thought I was going to have a lot of trouble with, but I was able to take that game pretty convincingly. I think that Zero can give the deck a lot of trouble, but luckily I think that list was a little bit easier to play against. My second game, I played a Resident Stealth list, a Resident Stealth deck that I really liked. There were some interesting stealth decks there, and the rulers they had were very interesting. That one was a little bit more difficult. It ran Death Scythe, Moonbeam, all the cards that I think are a really good counter to the deck. When I played that, I was pretty nervous, but I found that I had a little bit more wiggle room than I was expecting when I played against that matchup. So luckily, I was able to deactivate, wait a turn, and then go along with the regular one, game 1. And then game 2, I sided in my Heavenly Gus. They didn't do too much work, but I was able to take game 2 as well. The third match was my first loss, and it was against a Feasting Elf deck. It ran the Elf Village card, which allows all your J Resonators to block flying, and that was a really good card that really screwed over the deck. Because I changed the Heavenly Gus to my sideboard, I had pretty much no way to deal with it the first game. The second game, I sided in my Heavenly Gus and some Zero's Magic Light to try and get past some of his blockers, and I was close. The damage was close, but I didn't quite get there. I didn't have the stones. I didn't have the dual green to push through that last damage, and so I ended up losing the second game as well. The fourth match was against another interesting deck. It was a Prisha ramp list with 4 Sacred Beasts with Huang Long. It's pretty cool. Unfortunately, it wasn't fast enough to get out all of its to ramp and get out its Huang Long, and so the Zero Bomb was much faster, and I was able to close out that game pretty quickly too. The fifth game was probably the most challenging that I had. It was also my second loss. It was a really interesting Stealth Mikage list. That was very scary. It ran a lot of the great hate to this deck. It had Buried Shadows, Death Scythe, Moonbeam, all the pretty scary stuff. Game 1, I couldn't do too much. The Buried Shadows really, I maybe had 5 or 6 Regalia out, and no stones to activate them. Not enough stones, I should say. So game 1 was pretty frustrating. Game 2, I did side in my Heavenly Gus. I don't think I ended up using them. I was able to take that game with a combination of just regular attacking 3 turns in a row, and some of the regular Rapid Growth and Blood of the Mikage spells. Was able to get that damage through. The third game was very close. We traded back and forth. I deactivated, swung in, but I wasn't able to do enough damage, and then he deactivated with Mikage, and the list was pretty cool. It was kind of similar to like the finisher with Mikage as a finisher is like really strong. So I wasn't able to take game 3. So I ended up going 3 and 2 in the regular rounds. So once I hit top 8, my first match was actually against the Stealth Rezzard list that I played in my second round. So I kind of knew the deck going in, and unfortunately he didn't get any of those, anything to really stop me, which is unfortunate for him. But so that was a quick game. I took that match, and luckily the next match was a Machina list, which was pretty fast, and it put out a lot of resonators. It was really strong. Unfortunately, it wasn't fast enough to race the deck, and I was able to kill him before he could play all those resonators and March of Machines made. The last game, the finals, was also against another Machina deck. Similarly to how the last match went, the deck just wasn't fast enough. It put out a lot of things, but by the time he did March of Machines, I already had 0 out, so there was no swiftness to be gained. Unfortunately for him, and then I came back and swung in for enough damage to end it. Overall, it was a really awesome experience. I'm really glad with how the deck ended up. The deck is a very cheesy deck. I think that's part of the reason why it performed so well. Not a lot of people were expecting it. You know, a lot of decks I think recently have been sideboarding in the Barrier Shadows. So game 1 might go a little difficult for them, and then game 2 I have my Heavenly Gusts, which can definitely deal with Barrier Shadows and Death Scythe. I think the deck definitely has a lot of really good hate. I think it could be very easy to stop with the right cards. And, the Elfin Villages are really strong. Barrier Shadows. Even if I face like a Gil deck, they just kind of win because Gil, you have to pay 1 more. He's basically a Barrier Shadows. You get turn 0. So I think the deck definitely has weaknesses, and it can be stopped very easily. And I think, but it's fun. It's pretty cool. So after seeing how the deck performed, one of the things I've been thinking of is maybe running some destructive assaults in the sideboard, taking out maybe the Moonbeams. I didn't feel like I needed the Moonbeams too much because by the time they had their J Ruler out, I had either won or lost the game. So destructive assault, I feel like it's a little cheaper. It's only 1 green, so if I need to, it's a little bit more effective if they have, if they only have 1 of the additions or regalia that are really hurting me. So I think the other thing that I've been thinking of is whether or not I should leave the Heavenly Gusts in my main board. Really, with all the hate. And like Barrier Shadows could be, is fairly prevalent. Death Scythe is frustrating. I didn't like the dead draws against stuff like when I faced Machina and Krisha. I was able to, like game 1, I was able to perform much better. Game 1 was a lot easier with all the damage cards that I cited in, or that I changed out for the Heavenly Gust. So I'm still not sure about that. I think with a more refined list, it could be a much better deck. And I think it might still have the ways to go if I can make it a bit better. Anyways, thank you for staying with me and listening to me talk about my deck for a good deal. This is pretty awesome. I've never been to an ARG, so this was like a first for me. Yeah, I get it. It's a first for me. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you around the next corner.